our reading this morning comes from an oldie but a goodie, Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. Anne writes, "When you love someone, you do not love them all the time in exactly the same way from moment to moment. It is an impossibility. It is even a lie to pretend to. And yet, this is exactly what most of us demand. We have so little faith in the ebb and flow of life, of love, of relationships. We leap at the flow of the tide and resist in terror its ebb. We are afraid it will never return. We insist on permanency, on duration, on continuity, when the only continuity possible in life, as in love, is in growth, in fluidity, in freedom, in the sense that the dancers are free, barely touching as they pass, but partners in the same pattern. The only real security is not in owning or possessing, not in demanding or expecting, not in hoping even. Security in a relationship lies neither in looking back to what was in nostalgia, nor forward to what it might be in dread or anticipation, but living in the present relationship and accepting it as it is now. Relationships must be like islands. One must accept them for what they are, here and now, with their limits. Islands surrounded and interrupted by the sea, and continually visited and abandoned by the tides." Therein ends our reading. Each day that I drive from my home in Amesbury, Massachusetts, to my church in Portland, Maine, I receive the gift of rivers and the gift of the sea. I drive north, crossing first the Portsmouth Bridge, where I look west to the Piscataqua River, and east to where the river flows and meets the Atlantic Ocean. I cross another bridge, smaller, as I pass through Kittery, over the delightful Spruce Creek running into the Piscataqua River, and out into that same sea. Soon after, I cross the York River, and then the Saco River, and then the Fore River, just before it mixes and mingles with the salty water of Portland Harbor. As I get closer, I take in Back Cove to my left and Casco Bay to my right. Though the rivers are mostly consistent in where they meet the shoreline, it depends on what rain we've had. Their color varies on the weather and the light. But once I enter Portland, surrounded by the ocean into which these rivers flow, all bets are off. The tide can be high, sun shining, or I can see not much more than mud and seaweed. The color can be green with white-tipped waves, a deep teal, my favorite, or the bluest of blues. And at the end of the day, I head south again. The water line is different. What was coming in is now going out. What was mud is now sea. What began as deep teal is now unmistakably navy blue. And yet, though it is the same sea and the same land, it can feel as if I'm seeing it for the first time. Land surrounded by and interrupted by the sea, continually visited and abandoned by the tides. Perhaps it is the same with you, catching views of Nahant Bay or Broad Sound, different than when you saw it last. In many ways, parts of my own life have revolved around the tides. With sailing fanatic parents and island-dwelling family members, our summer schedule was often decided by Mother Nature's ebb and flow. And it's funny thinking back to that, really funny, actually, because while this change and transformation that is nature's constant, the movement of the sea feels like home to me. In other parts of my life, I hate change. I buy pretty much exactly the same groceries each time I shop. Huge bag of carrots, Twizzlers. I use the same clipper settings every month when my partner Laura cuts my hair in front of the bathroom mirror. Is anybody else here a creature of habit? Couple of you? Creatures of habit. So you get it. You get this. And of course, we all know intellectually that in this life, it is change that is the only constant. We know that. To hate change is, in a way, to hate the very nature of life itself. Nature, the sea, provides a gorgeous example, but the change in us, the change in those we love, those can be a little less glamorous, right? Breathtaking, perhaps, but hard work to bear steady witness, to change alongside, to truly take on the spiritual task of acceptance, the sweet balance of commitment and release. Perhaps one of the most incredible and challenging parts of being human is that we are all always in process. As Andrea Gibson writes, to love someone, and I would add to love ourselves, isn't so much to know them as it is to know their never-ending becoming. What it takes to accept ourselves is to allow ourselves the space and the freedom to become who we are called to become by God, by life. What it takes to accept others is to allow them the space and freedom they need to grow and change and transform as they are called. None of us is the same as we were yesterday. I thank God for that. And we will be different tomorrow, for we cross through the thresholds of life's doors every single day. Perhaps you are at a threshold of some sort at this very moment. Something is stirring or shifting, and what comes next might not be clear. Perhaps it's your child who is transitioning to a new gender or who has chosen a new name, or your spouse whose memory is fading. Perhaps it's a dear friend who chooses a path you can't understand. A family member whose personality shifts as their doctor tweaks their meds. A body that can't do what it used to, or a body that has a new lease on life. Or there's the friend who becomes sober and asks of you new ways of being together. The aging parent who, after a lifetime of cruelty, taps into a deep well of kindness in their final days. We insist on permanency, on duration, on continuity, when the only continuity possible in life, as in love, is in growth, in fluidity, in freedom. And part of accepting the way we and those we love change is to open ourselves and our hearts to the reality of loss. For in all change, there is as much heartbreak as there is beauty. And so we must also grieve what we are leaving behind. My mother tells me that as a young child, it was between leaving the house and getting into the car that I had my most epic meltdowns. Change is hard. Change is hard. It can feel like our lives are falling apart. It can feel like our communities are falling apart or like our families are falling apart. And falling apart can feel like a total free fall. Western Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron teaches that things changing, things falling apart, is a kind of testing and also a kind of healing. She writes, "We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved or get stable or stop changing. They come together and they fall apart. And they come together again and they fall apart again. They come together and they fall apart. They come together again and they fall apart again." Life isn't lived when we become who we are. Life is lived each moment. We and those we love are continually becoming. Coming together, falling apart, rising and falling, coming in, coming out. Tide is high, tide is low. Life is lived each moment. We and those we love are continually becoming, and we don't want to miss it, right? We don't want to miss it. And so how do we continue to flow and let others flow like the tides? How do we make sure we don't miss it? Late American playwright Lillian Hellman articulated this conundrum when she said, "People change and forget to tell each other. People change and forget to tell each other." And Andrea Gibson's response through poetry offers us such loving care. There is so much love, they write. There is so much love in continually asking, who are you now? Who are you now? Not yesterday, not who will you be tomorrow, but now, right here, today. And who are the people you love? In this moment between falling apart and coming back together in this dance of ebb and flow. If there's someone in your life you feel as though you don't even know anymore, it's possible that you don't. It's possible that you don't. And so perhaps it's time to ask, who are you becoming today? Now, though it bugs them, I introduce myself to my congregation each week by reminding them that I am their transitional minister. And I do that with intention, as a reminder, not just that I won't be there forever, but to center the reality that we are together a work in progress. That we as a faith community are in transition from what was to what will be. That we are partners in ministry in a season of the world that is deeply uncertain. And that we don't shy away from that reality. We lean into it. Ultimately, it is my belief that all ministry is transitional ministry because we humans are always changing. I do transitional work, and in a different way, Reverend Victoria also does transitional work, even though she is your settled minister. We are always changing. And so we minister to each other through that change, through the change of the institutions that we've created, because those change too. And so our work as ministers is to bear witness to your transformation, the space and the movement between the trough and the crest of our shared waves. Because if you leave this place unchanged, we have not done our job. If you leave this place unchanged, we have not done our job. We know as people of faith that in the end, what matters in life is how we love. Is how we love. We know that to be true. So how, then, do we love one another amidst all this change? We love through change by inviting those we love in to our hearts, into our truths, to our confusion, and to our becoming. We love through change by asking those we love who they are now. By asking how it is with their spirit, how it is with their heart, what's ebbing and what's flowing. We love through change by trying to articulate our own becoming and by listening long enough to give another the chance to do the same. Relationships, Anne writes, relationships must be like islands, surrounded and interrupted by the sea, continually visited and abandoned by the tides. May we love both fiercely and gently as we and all those we love are continually made new. May it be so. Amen.